All right, so for this game, it looks like we have what is largely a sequencing game. We just have a bunch of people, and then some of them are going to essentially present, and then some of them are not going to. So we'll set this up accordingly. The elements themselves are FJL, and then we've got MPQS, and I guess let's get into the rules. So the first rule says that if we have an F, then we'll have to have both M and P. So if there's an F, then we have to have an M, and you'll have to have a P. And it looks like a lot of these rules might connect, so I'm gonna, separate that out. The contrapositive, of course, says that if we don't have an M or if we don't have a P, then we certainly cannot have an F. Next, if we have a J, then we do not have a Q. Now we know, what, we don't really have a J or a Q on the board, so I'm just going to hold off for a moment to see if I can connect other rules in before I go through this one. The third rule says that if we don't have a Q, then we will have to have a P, and conveniently we do have a P here, so let's link this in. We can say that if we don't have Q, then we must have P, or if we don't have P contraposed, then we must have a Q. And this also, for the record, creates an inclusive relationship between P and Q. Essentially, what this rule says is that one of P or Q is going to have to be in. Next, now this allows us to link in the second rule, because you'll notice that the second rule referenced Q. And the second rule told us that if we have a J, then we cannot have a Q, and we can link that over here. If we have a J, then we'll have to get rid of Q. Contraposed, if we have a Q, then we'll have to get rid of J. And this essentially creates an exclusive relationship between Q and J. This basically says that between Q and J, one of them at least will have to be out. Next, we are told that if we have L, then either J, S, or both, well, essentially we'll have to have either J or S. Now this one's a bit of an awkward one because this one we have to keep it together. We can't split this rule out because if we have an L, we don't exactly know what's going to happen, whether it's going to be a J or an S. It has to be one of them at least, but it's not like those rules would work independently. So since it would be awkward to connect it, I'm going to set this up separately. We can say if we have an L, then you'll have to have a J or an S. So contraposed, I guess, if we don't have a J and if we don't have an S, then we cannot have an L. And lastly, we are told that if we have both L and S, then M will not present. Again, this rule, we have to keep it together because it's not like L or S. It's not like they would independently trigger M. So this is kind of a compounded rule. But really, it's worth simplifying this one because all this is really saying is that L, S, and M, that they can't all be in at the same time. If two of them are in, it basically kicks out the other guy. So we can kind of just rewrite this rule as saying that between L or S or M, we have to have a minimum of one out. Now note, we could arguably have all of them out, but essentially what this rule says is that at least one of those three guys is going to have to be out. And I suppose we can reserve a space on the outside. We can say one of L or S or M will always have to be out. Now, beyond that, it doesn't seem like we can do much more with this. It's worth noting there's not really any spacing restrictions in the game, so this looks like it's as good as it gets. So you know what, let's take a look at the questions. Question number 17. Now 17 is our standard exclusion question, so we just do it by the original set of rules as usual. So first rule, if we have an F, we're supposed to have M and P. So going through the answer choices, that would disqualify answer choice B, since there's an F there without a P. Answer choice C has both, so we're good, or I suppose all three. And then D and E don't really have an F, so they don't really apply. So we're still good with the rest of the answer choices. Next, if we have a J, then we're supposed to get rid of Q. So going through the answer choices, looks like answer choice E is the only one that has a J, and it has a Q, which is not okay. So we can get rid of answer choice E. Next, if we don't have a Q, then we're supposed to have P. Now A does not have a Q, but it also doesn't have a P, so we can get rid of answer choice A. And then between C and D, answer choice C doesn't have a Q, but we have a P, so we're fine. And then D does have a Q, so we're okay. Next, we are told that if we have an L, then we're supposed to have at least one of J or S. Now, between C and D, C has an L, but you'll notice that we have neither J nor S, so we can get rid of that, and that leaves us with answer choice D as the only viable answer for question number 17. And as usual, I suppose let's just plug that in case it comes in handy. We have MPQS on the inside, which leaves us with F, J, and L conveniently on the outside. Next, let's take a look at the local question. So the first local question here is number 18, which asks, if we have both L and Q, then, well, first let's figure out what that means. So if we have both L and Q, what does that effectively tell us? Now, L requires one of J or S, but I suppose we still don't know which one. Oh, but Q would have to get rid of J, except wait, L still requires one of J or S, except J is already out, so S is going to have to be the one who is in. So that's pretty good. What else do we know? Oh, well, according to the last rule, we're supposed to have one of L, S, or M out, except L and S are already in, so M is going to have to be the one that gets kicked out. And if M is out, we also know that we have to get rid of F, so that's kind of nice. We can kick out F as well. Who are we left with? We have F, J, L, M, O, P. P is missing. But P, I suppose we don't really know much about. The only thing that would affect him is this rule, but this is only if we have an F in, which we don't. So I think we're okay. Let's take a look at the question. The question says, which of the following now could be true? A, we have an F, and no, we cannot. Answer choice B, can we have a J? And no, J is out. C, can we have an M? Nope, M is out. D, exactly 2 people present. Well, no, we have to have at least 3 right now. So cross your fingers. E, exactly 3 of the 7 present. And yeah, we could have 3 because P currently could have been out. We don't really know what happens with P right now. So the best answer to question number 18 is E. Next, now 19 and 20, these are both global, so we'll come back to these in just a moment. Let's take a look at question 21. So 21 says, if exactly 2 of the reps present, well, if we have to have only 2 people in, that's kind of restricted because, first of all, we already know that one of those people is going to have to be either P or Q, so that's kind of nice. So that really means that there's only one open space available, and obviously we're going to have 5 people on the outside. Anything else we can do here? Well, I guess we can look for things that would cause problems on the inside since we have so few spaces available. Like, for example, there's no way to have an F right now because if F is in, you'd have to bring in both M and P, and we don't have the room for that. So F is going to have to be out. Anything else? J would bring in P, but that's okay, I guess, because P could fit into this placeholder still. What about L? If we trigger L, we're supposed to have one of J or S, and we can't really fit those guys because those would be separate from the placeholder. So if L goes in, we wouldn't be able to additionally fit both J and S, so L would also have to be out. The last rule, L, S, or M, one of them is out, but I mean, we already have L there, so that's okay. All right, let's see what we can do. The question asks, which of the following cannot be one of the 2 that present? Well, we know that F and L are definitely out. And conveniently, answer choice A is L. We know L cannot present. So the best answer to question 21 is A. Next, number 22. If F presents, what would have to happen? Well, again, let's play this out. If we have F on the inside, what does that tell us? Well, first of all, that would trigger both of these guys, right? So M and P would both be in as well. Can we do more than that? Well, I suppose we can bring down the placeholders. Well, first of all, we know that between L, S, and M, one of them has to be out. So I guess it still could be either L or S. So we know either L or S will have to be out. And as usual, one of Q or J will have to be out. But other than that, I'm not really sure we can do much more here. So you know what? Let's see what we can do. The question asks, which of the following now must be true? Answer choice A, at least 3 of the reps present. And yeah, actually, that's a pretty easy pickup. We definitely have at least 3 people in. So the best answer to number 22 is A. Just in case if you were suspicious, we can take a look at the rest. Answer choice B, at most 4 people present. Well, right now, we really only have to have 2 people out, which seemingly would allow for 5 people to go in, right? So yeah, why couldn't you have 5? Like if you have an L over here, maybe you could have L with a J, so that would satisfy this rule. And that could be okay. No, that doesn't seem like it would break anything. So that doesn't have to be true, that there's at most 4. We could have had 5. Answer choice C, neither J nor Q present. Now, one of them would have to necessarily be out. That's true. But does it have to be true that they're both out? And no, why couldn't one of them go in? In fact, we just had a scenario where we hypothetically said maybe we could have an L with a J. So it doesn't seem like it has to be true that both of them are out. Answer choice D, exactly one of L or S presents. Now we could have one of them in, but we don't have to. Why couldn't they both be out? I mean, we know that at least one of them is out, but it could be both as well. So answer choice D is out. Next, either J or S present. Do we have to have a J or an S? And I mean, arguably, I don't see why. Couldn't they both be out? In fact, couldn't we arguably have all of these guys be out? We don't really have to have any of them in. So that doesn't seem like it has to be true. And A is pretty much a shoo-in, right? We definitely know that at least 3 of the reps would have to be in. So once again, the best answer to 22 is A. Next, back to the globals. Question number 19. Which one of the following reps could be the only representative who presents? So who could be on the inside alone? Well, actually, there's a bit of a shortcut we can take here, because the thing is, we've got this placeholder right here. And that placeholder basically dictates that one of P or Q is always in, which means if there's somebody who is in alone, it's going to have to be one of those two, because anybody else who goes in would have to be with one of P or Q, so they wouldn't really be alone. So P and Q are really the only ones who could possibly be in alone. And going through the answer choices, P is not available, so the best answer is Q, or in other words, D, for question number 19. Lastly, question number 20. Which of the following cannot be true? Answer choice A, F and Q are both in. So could we have had F and Q both in? Now, historically, we haven't really seen it happen yet, but I mean, in the last scenario, couldn't you have had, I mean, we have an F here already, and Q was wide open. Couldn't we have had a Q over here, potentially? And if we have a Q, it doesn't really seem to break anything. It just kicks out the J, which seems okay. So I don't see why that can't be true. Answer choice B, J presents, but P doesn't. Could we have a J without a P? Oh, no, that would never happen, because if you have a J, we know that we would have to have a P. So that cannot be true. It's impossible to have a J without a P. The best answer to question number 20 then is B.